Evan Carter stood still inside the tall, glowing hall. He had never seen anything like this before. The walls of the Zyrene Palace were not made of metal or stone, but of something alive, pulsing softly like a heartbeat. Strange blue lights moved through the air like floating fireflies. The sound of humming vibrations came from the walls, as if the whole palace was singing. He was a soldier, not a diplomat. So why was he here? "Stand straight, human," the tall alien beside him said. Her name was Vrina, one of the Queen's guards. She had long limbs, silver eyes, and armor that looked like part of her skin. She didn't smile. No Zyrene ever did. "I'm standing," Evan said quietly. The Queen had called for a meeting with Earth's ambassadors. Evan had been sent only as an escort, nothing more. But then something strange happened. Right when the talks were about to begin, a loud, high-pitched cry rang through the palace. It wasn't a normal baby's cry. It sounded like a siren mixed with breaking glass. Everyone froze. Even Vrina winced. The Queen stood up. Her face, smooth and insect-like, with a crown of crystal horns, showed a flicker of emotion. Was it pain? Fear? She gave a quick order in her native tongue, and several guards rushed out of the chamber. Then she looked at Evan. "You," she said. Her voice was calm, but powerful. "Follow." Evan blinked. "Me." She did not answer. She just turned and walked down a side corridor. Her long, dark robe shimmered like oil under light. Evan looked at the human ambassador. The man gave a helpless shrug, so Evan followed. The hall narrowed into a tunnel. The hum grew louder. Then, at the end, a door opened. Inside was a strange room, half nursery, half throne room. Pillars of crystal reached toward the ceiling. In the center was a cradle made of shining metal and soft green silk. Floating above it was a small alien infant. The baby was the source of the sound. It cried so loudly the air seemed to shake. Evan stepped back in shock. The Queen walked calmly forward. "My daughter," she said. Evan had heard the rumors. The Queen had recently given birth, a rare event. One heir born in 100 years. But no one had seen the baby. "Until now, she has not stopped," the Queen said. Her voice was quieter now. 3 nights. No sleep. No peace. Nothing calms her. Evan stared. Baby's skin was pale violet, soft and glowing. Her eyes, though tightly shut in distress, had a faint silver line that flickered with power. The Queen looked at him. "You're kind. Your emotions. You hold something we do not understand. You sing to your young. You whisper comfort." Evan hesitated. "You want me to?" "Sing to her." "I want you to try." He didn't understand why. Wasn't trained for this, but the baby's cry hurt even more than battlefield noise. And there was something else, something in the Queen's eyes. Desperation. Evan slowly stepped forward. The baby floated in the cradle, surrounded by soft lights and alien machines. But none of it helped her. She cried, like her world was ending. He knelt beside the cradle, remembered something his sister's baby years ago. How she cried during the night. He had held her and hummed an old Earth's lullaby, so Evan took a breath and heave. Just a quiet tune. No words, just sound. The baby's cry weakened. 1 second, 2, then silence. The whole room went still. The Queen's eyes widened. A few guards standing nearby looked at each other, stunned. The baby opened her eyes, silver and bright. She looked at Evan, and then made a soft sound. "Coo." Evan smiled. "Hey there, little star." She blinked slowly. "No more crying." Queen Azira stepped closer. For the first time, her voice trembled. "What did you do?" "I just sang," Evan said. She knelt beside him. The mighty Queen of the Zyrene, on her knees beside a human soldier. "Your presence, your touch, your voice," she whispered. "You calmed her mind. She's just a baby," Evan said softly. She wanted warmth. She wanted kindness. Azira looked at him deeply. "You understand what this means?" she asked. Evan blinked. "What?" The Queen stood tall again. Among my people, no one outside the royal bloodline may touch the air. No one has ever soothed a royal child like this. It is sacred. Evan frowned. I didn't mean to break any rules. You broke none, she said. You did something more. You passed the rite of heart. What's that? In old times, she said, when a queen sought a partner, she tested them not with war or words, but with peace. If one could calm the next queen, they were worthy to stand beside the current one. Evan stood slowly. You're saying, if you can calm her again, Azira said, then I will offer you my hand. Evan's mouth opened. Nothing came out. Queen Azira stepped closer. She was taller than him, stronger, older, but her voice was soft now. You have a fire in you, human, but also a gentleness we do not possess. We build great cities, win many battles, but you sing to crying children. Evan looked at the baby, who now slept peacefully. Tiny hands curled into soft fists. He looked back at the queen. I don't know what to say. He whispered, then say nothing, she said. Let your actions speak. Later that night, Evan sat alone in a quiet chamber they had given him. He couldn't sleep. His head was full. How did this happen? He had come as a bodyguard. Now the alien queen had offered him something like a proposal? Could this be a trick? A political trap? Or something real? He didn't know. But he knew one thing. That baby had needed him. And he had helped her. He wasn't a father. He wasn't even ready for a relationship. But the moment she stopped crying, something inside him shifted. He wanted to help again. He wanted to see her smile, and as strange as it was, he wanted to hear the queen's voice again. Evan Carter stood on a small balcony made of smooth black crystal. It overlooked the glowing city of Velthor Prime, capital of the Zyrene. Tall spires rose into the sky, their tips shining like stars. Alien birds flew past, their wings long, and curved like blades. Strange music echoed in the distance, soft and slow. He held a warm drink in his hand. It tasted like honey and mint, but with a sharp aftertaste he couldn't name. He was still trying to understand what had happened. Just yesterday, he was a soldier escorting Earth's diplomats. Now he had calmed the queen's baby and somehow become a candidate for her hand? He took another sip. Behind him, the door slid open with a hiss. Queen Azira stepped out. She was tall and elegant, with pale blue skin that shimmered in the moonlight. Her long, insect-like hair moved slightly on its own. She wore a flowing black robe with glowing silver lines, and a small gem floated above her forehead. Her presence was powerful, but not cold. She looked at Evan. You were awake early? Couldn't sleep, he said. I understand, she replied. They stood in silence for a moment. The wind was gentle. Finally, Evan asked, were you serious? About your offer? She turned to face him. Yes, I never speak empty words. He swallowed. I'm not sure I understand your people's customs or your reasons. Azira walked slowly to the edge of the balcony, her long fingers touching the railing. Among the Zyrene, we value strength, strategy, victory. But those things are only half of what a ruler needs. The other half is heart, emotion, peace. She looked at him. We have forgotten that part. You reminded me. Evan looked away. I didn't do much, just sang to a baby. No, she said gently. You calmed my child. No one else could. Gave her peace. You gave me peace. Evan looked at her now. Her eyes were glowing softly in the dark. I don't know what it means to be a consort or a royal partner. Not even sure I'm ready for something like that. Do not think of titles, she said. Think only of the child, of how you felt. Evan nodded slowly. I felt needed. Queen smiled just a little. That is the beginning of something real. Later that day, Evan was taken to a special training hall deep in the palace. It was round and open with tall mirrors and floating screens. Several Zyrene caretakers waited for him. Along with Vrina, the queen's head guard, we will teach you how to hold the royal child properly, Vrina said, and how to protect her if needed. Evan blinked. Protect. From what? There are those who see your bond with the Queen in the air as a threat, she said simply. Evan's face hardened. I thought this was about peace. Is, she replied, but peace often creates fear. Training began. Evan learned how to cradle the child without disturbing her delicate psychic fields. He learned how to sing in tones the infant responded to best, high and soft, with warm emotions. He also practiced carrying her through simulated emergencies, using small energy shields and fast-moving corridors. He did well. The caretakers were surprised. That night, Azira joined him again. This time, she brought the child. Princess Nisha floated in her arms, her eyes bright and curious. When she saw Evan, she squealed softly and reached out her tiny arms. She remembers you, Azira said, smiling. Evan stepped forward. He held out his hands. The baby floated into his arms with a small hum. He laughed. It's lighter then. Air she floats when happy, Azira said. Evan sat on a large cushion, the baby in his lap. She grabbed his finger with her tiny hand. Her skin was warm and her eyes sparkled. Azira sat beside him. For a moment, they looked like a real family. Evan asked quietly, What happens if I say no to your offer? The Queen looked at him. Then you will still be honored. You will still be welcome. You will still see her if you choose. If I say yes, then you will become more than a soldier. You will be consort to the Queen of Velthera. You will live in this palace, share power, help raise the heir, and one day perhaps guide an empire. Evan looked down at the baby. She yawned and blinked up at him. I'm just a guy from Earth, whispered. And I, Azira said, I'm just a woman with too many duties and a child who cries when I hold her. He looked at her. She doesn't cry when you hold her. Now, no, she said softly, because you are near. Their eyes met. For a moment, Evan forgot where he was. The stars above, the strange city around them, the alien queen beside him. It all felt. Right the next morning, a message came from Earth's diplomats. They were surprised by the Queen's offer and worried about its meaning. Some thought it was a political trap. Others saw it as a chance to form a powerful alliance. Evan was called to a private meeting. Ambassador Holloway. An older man with tired eyes looked at him seriously. Son, do you know what this could mean? Evan nodded. I think so. If you say yes, Earth could gain a voice in one of the strongest empires in this part of the galaxy. I didn't do it for power, Evan said. I believe you, but you're in the middle of something huge now. History books might write about this day. Evan looked out the window. The palace tower shone in the morning light. I didn't want history, he said. I just wanted her to stop crying. The ambassador nodded. Sometimes that's how history begins. That evening, the Queen invited him to a formal dinner. It was a small event held in a garden dome filled with glowing trees and soft music. The baby slept in a floating pod beside them. Azira wore a silver robe with blue lights that moved like water. Evan wore a new suit made of soft black material, given to him by the palace. The Queen lifted a glass made of crystal. In old times, she said, a queen offered her hand only to one who passed the 3 trials: strength, wisdom, and heart. She looked at him. You have shown all 3. Evan blinked. Wisdom. When you listened, she said. When you did not rush. When you asked questions instead of making demands. He smiled. She stood. She reached into her robe and pulled out a small object. It was a ring, but not a normal one. It was made of living crystal, glowing softly with blue and gold light. It floated in her hand. She stepped toward him. If you take this, she said, you become more than a guest, more than a friend. You become family. Evan stood slowly. He looked at the baby, sleeping peacefully. Then he looked into Azira's eyes. I need time, he said honestly. She nodded. Will be given. She placed the floating ring on a small cushion and left it before him. When you are ready, she whispered, place it on your hand, and I will take it as your answer. That night, Evan sat in his room, staring at the ring. It glowed gently. In the dark, he wasn't sure what he would choose yet, but he knew this much. He had never felt more alive than when the baby stopped crying in his arms. And he had never felt more connected than when the queen looked at him like he mattered. Whatever happened next, he knew it was only the beginning. Evan Carter walked slowly through the royal gardens. Strange flowers glowed in the moonlight. Their scent was thick in the air, sweet but sharp, like fruit mixed with metal. Small silver insects buzzed quietly around the glowing vines. The distance, tall towers blinked with pale blue lights. Evan needed some quiet. His mind was full. Since the queen gave him the floating crystal ring, he had felt heavy with questions. Could he really accept her offer? Could a human soldier become a royal consort to an alien queen? He touched the small pouch at his side. Inside was the ring. It still glowed, waiting for his answer. He sighed and sat beside a long, curved plant, shaped like a bench. He leaned back, closed his eyes, and let his thoughts drift. That's when he heard it. A strange sound, soft like static. Then a low voice. Not speaking Zyrene. It's not Earth standard either. He opened his eyes. From where he sat, he could see part of a side garden through the tall leaves. Shadows moved between the plants. He quietly stood and stepped closer. 3 figures stood in a circle, toward the dark armor of palace staff. The third had a red scarf unusual in the palace. Evan crouched behind a large root and listened. She's too calm now, one voice whispered. The queen trusts the human. The air responds to him, said another. That makes him dangerous. Then we remove the air, the third said coldly, and blame the human. Evan's heart jumped. No air, no consort. The queen will be forced to choose a Zyrene noble to continue the line, one of our own. We strike during the ceremony, the second voice added. When the child is brought forward, Evan slowly backed away. His foot brushed a stone, and it rolled. The sound was loud in the quiet garden. The figures turned sharply. There. Someone shouted. Evan ran. He sprinted down a narrow path, dodging between glowing trees and leaping over low vines. Behind him, the footsteps followed. He tapped the cum device on his wrist. Vrina. Emergency in the West Gardens. Assassins. Plotting against the air. Static then. Her voice. Location marked. Guards inbound. Evan didn't stop running until he reached a large open area with a fountain. As he reached the middle, 3 guards in black silver armor dropped from above, weapons drawn. The footsteps behind him stopped. The attackers had vanished. An hour later, Evan stood in the queen's private chamber. Queen Azira stood still, her arms crossed. Her face was calm, but her eyes were burning with quiet fury. You are sure of what you heard? She asked. Evan nodded. They want to harm Princess Nisha. They called her a weakness. Azira's hands tightened. There are those in my court who believe strength means coldness. They think love is soft, weak, dangerous. She looked at him. They are wrong. Vrina stepped forward. We have guards searching the garden, but the attackers were clever. They left no trace. They were palace staff, Evan said, or pretending to be. Azira turned to Vrina. Double the guard around the nursery. No one enters without my command. Yes, my queen. Evan looked at her. He said the attack would happen during the ceremony. Azira nodded slowly. The right of light. It is a public event. Nisha is to be shown to the people. Maybe you should cancel it. No. She said, if I cancel, they win. They'll know we're afraid. That fear will grow. Evan frowned. But what about the baby? She's just a child. Azira turned to him. She is a queen in waiting, but also my daughter. I will protect her with you if you are still willing. Evan's voice was firm. Of course I am. She nodded. Then we prepare. Over the next 2 days, Evan trained harder than ever. He learned the palace's secret halls' escape routes. Hidden doors and old tunnels. Vrina taught him how to use Zyrene energy shields, which reacted to the user's emotions. The calmer he stayed, the stronger the shield. He practiced holding Nisha while running, shielding, and navigating narrow corridors. The baby never cried. In fact, she giggled most of the time. Evan began to feel something deep inside, something more than duty. A bond. Nisha wasn't just the queen's heir. She was his family now. 2. The day of the Rite of Light came. Thousands of Zyrene citizens gathered in the great plaza. Above them, floating platforms held nobles and high officers. Music played through the air like wind chimes in a storm. Queen Azira stood tall at the edge of a high platform. She wore her full ceremonial armor, black crystal with gold veins. Her crown shone like a second sun. Evan stood beside her. His black ceremonial suit had a silver sash, the symbol of protector, princess. Nisha floated in a small glowing pod between them. Azira raised her hand. The music stopped. "My people," she said, her voice echoing. "I give you the future. My daughter, your queen-to-be." The crowd bowed their heads. Nisha cooed happily. But then something shifted. A sound. A sharp hum. Evan turned. A noble from a nearby platform raised his arm. Small dark device flew toward the child. "Shield." Azira shouted. Evan didn't think. He moved faster than ever. He jumped forward and wrapped himself around Nisha. The device exploded in light. Evan's body flew backward. He hit the ground hard, but the baby was safe in his arms. His shield had held guards moved instantly, tackling the attacker. Screams echoed across the plaza. Evan coughed and opened his eyes. The baby looked up at him, calm and safe. Azira knelt beside him. "Are you hurt?" "I'm fine," he said. "Is she okay?" The queen touched the baby's cheek. "She's calm." Evan smiled. "Told you. She likes me." That night, the palace was locked down. The noble who attacked was taken into custody. His name was Lord Kyrith, one of the old families who hated human influence. Under questioning, he confessed there was a larger group working in secret. More enemies hidden in the court. Queen Azira ordered a full investigation. But even as the palace prepared for a political storm, Azira had one thing clear in her mind. Evan had protected her daughter, not because he was ordered, because he cared. In her private chamber, she stood beside him. "You could have died," she said quietly. "I didn't," he replied. "You risked everything for her. She's worth it." The queen touched his face gently, something rare among her people. "You once asked me if I was serious when I offered you my hand," she said. "Now I ask you." Evan reached into his pocket. He pulled out the glowing ring. He placed it on his finger and said, "Yes." Evan Carter stood beside Queen Azira in the Grand War Chamber. Large crystal screens floated around the room, each showing different parts of the palace. Guards moved in and out of the room, their armored boots tapping the floor like drums. Azira's face was calm, but her eyes burned with quiet rage. The attack during the Rite of Light had been more than a single traitor's act. It was only the beginning. The rebellion had begun. The traitors had taken the eastern wing of the palace. Rena said, her voice sharp. "They're using old security codes. They must have help from inside." "How many of them?" Evan asked. "At least 50. Possibly more. Armed and trained." "And their goal?" he asked, though he already knew. Vrina looked at Azira. The queen spoke, her voice strong. "They want Nisha. If they get her, they will claim I am unfit to rule. They'll use her to control the throne." Evan's jaw tightened. "Then we don't let that happen." Azira nodded. "We protect our daughter, and we fight for our people." The palace was no longer a peaceful place. Reed warning lights flashed. Along the walls, the humming sound of the living structure had changed, now throbbed like a war drum. Evan stayed close to Azira and Nisha. The child was kept in a floating shielded pod, watched by 4 of the queen's most trusted guards. She was calm, even as the palace shook from distant explosions. "She knows," Azira said, watching her. "She feels our emotions. If we stay strong, she stays calm." Evan placed a hand on the pod. "Then we stay strong." He looked at Azira. "What's the plan?" "We divide their forces," she said. "Draw them into the central hall, where we control the ground. I will lead the main force. And me. You'll stay with Nisha," she said. "You're the only one who can keep her calm during the chaos." Evan hesitated. "I should fight." "You will," Azira said. "But not with weapons. With your heart, with your presence. He nodded slowly. Then I won't leave her side. As the queen marched to battle, Evan stayed in the secured nursery chamber. It was deep underground, with heavy doors and guards on all sides. He sat beside the baby, humming soft lullabies. Even with muffled sounds of battle above them, Nisha stayed calm. But something felt wrong. One of the guards shifted nervously. Evan stood. "What is it?" I don't know, sir," the guard said. "It's too quiet now, like they've gone silent on purpose." Evan's eyes narrowed. Then the power flickered. The lights dimmed. One of the walls his stand began to open. Evan jumped to his feet. Defensive positions. A blast of energy hit the far wall. 3 rebels in black armor stormed in. They moved fast, but not fast enough. Evan grabbed Nisha's pod and activated the emergency shield. "Move to tunnel," he shouted. Guards returned fire. The chamber filled with flashes of light and shouts. Evan ran with the baby pod in front of him. The hidden escape tunnel opened just in time. He slipped inside and hit the lock. The metal door sealed shut behind him. He was alone now. It's just him and Nisha. He looked at the baby. She stared at him with calm, silver eyes. "Don't worry," he said, holding the pod close. "I've got you." The escape tunnel twisted and turned. It was old and full of dust, unused for decades. Evan followed the glowing guidelines on the walls. They led him toward the Queen's chamber, a place still under loyal control. But halfway through, the lines turned red, blocked. He cursed under his breath. Behind him, the sound of metal doors opening echoed through the tunnel. They were coming. Evan looked around. Then he saw a broken panel. He opened its hand, found a crawl space. "Time for a shortcut," he whispered. He climbed in, holding the baby pod close. The space was tight, hot, and full of cables. The pod floated silently beside him. Following his movements, he crawled for what felt like hours. Sweat poured down his back. Dust filled his nose at last. He saw light. He kicked open a hatch and dropped into a quiet hallway. He was just outside the throne room. He ran inside. Queen Azira stood with her guards. Her armor was scratched, her crown slightly cracked. But she stood tall. She turned as Evan entered. "Evan." He walked straight to her and placed the pod before her feet. "She's safe," he said, out of breath. "We were ambushed. Had to take the tunnels." Azira bent over and touched the pod. The baby cooed and reached for her hand. "She stayed calm?" she asked. "She didn't cry once." Azira looked at him, eyes full of gratitude. "You've done more than any warrior today?" Vrina ran into the room. "The last rebel force is pushing toward this chamber. They know the heir is here." Azira stood. "Then we make our final stand here." The battle in the throne room was fast and fierce. Rebels broke through the outer doors, firing energy weapons and shouting for the queen to surrender. But Azira fought like a storm. Her body moved with grace and fury, her psychic powers flashing like lightning. Evan stood behind her, using his shield to protect the baby. He blocked blast after blast, refusing to fall. More guards joined the fight, loyal ones. In the center of the chaos, the pod floated calmly. Princess Nisha glowed softly, watching the battle like she understood everything. Evan was hit on the arm, but kept fighting. Azira saw it and screamed. She launched herself at the rebel leader. Her energy blade cutting through his weapon, he dropped. To the floor, silence filled the chamber. The rebellion was over later. When the palace was quiet again, Azira stood beside Evan in the garden. She wore a new robe, soft white with gold trim. Her injuries were healed, but her expression was tired. "You protected her again," she said. Evan's arm was wrapped in bandages. "She's easy to love. You bled for her. For me, for all of us. I'd do it again." Azira stepped closer. "Then wear this." She reached into her robe and placed a new sash on his shoulder. It was the color of royalty, deep violet with a silver crest. "From this day forward," she said, "you are not just my consort. You are my equal." Evan looked at her. "That allowed?" "It is now," she smiled. Behind them, Nisha laughed for the first time. The sound rang through the garden like music. A new age had begun. A warm light filled the throne hall of Velthor Prime. The air buzzed with calm energy. The old wounds of battle were healed. Broken walls had been repaired. The grand palace once again looked like a place of peace and beauty. Evan Carter stood beside Queen Azira, dressed in formal robes of violet and silver. His earth skin looked strange among the glowing Zyrene crowd. But no one questioned his place anymore. He had earned it. The ceremony was about to begin. Princess Nisha, now a little older, floated beside him in her new royal cradle. She smiled and clapped her tiny hands at the music filling the hall. Zyrene musicians played soft notes using glowing strings and floating crystal bells. "She's happy," Evan whispered. "She feels what we feel," Azira replied. "And today, we are at peace." The ceremony was a declaration, not just of victory over the rebels, but of a new beginning. For the first time in Zyrene history, a human would be named consort king, and the people had accepted it. Not because of politics, but because he had earned their trust. He had protected their heir, stood beside their queen, and proved that human emotion, compassion, love, care could be a strength. As the ceremony ended, the queen stepped forward and raised her hand. The Zyrene bowed. The hall grew silent. "I stand before you as queen," Azira said, her voice clear. "But I do not stand alone." She turned to Evan. This human came from a distant world. He was not born into royalty. He was not trained in palace law. But when our daughter cried, he calmed her. When rebels rose, he shielded her. When fear filled the air, he brought hope. She walked toward him slowly. "Evan Carter of Earth," she said, "you have shown strength not with force, but with heart. Will you accept this title and this bond?" Evan looked at her, then at the people. Then down at the child who now called him father without words. "Yes," he said, "with all that I am." The crowd stood and let out a soft hum, a sound of joy in Zyrene culture. Azira reached out and took his hand. The moment she did, their crowns glowed with the same light. A connection had been made not just of status, but of spirit. Later, after the ceremony, Evan walked through the royal garden alone. The stars above were clear, and the twin moons of Velthora shone gently in the sky. He breathed deeply. The flowers smelled sweet. The air felt light. So much had changed. He wasn't just a soldier anymore. He was a father, a leader, a partner to a queen. But the best part of all, he finally felt like he belonged. A voice spoke behind him. "Thinking about running away?" Evan smiled and turned. It was HFY. She wore a simple dress now, her crown set aside. Her face looked younger, more relaxed. She sat beside him on the stone bench. "Never," he said. "I just needed a moment." "I understand," she replied. "I've had many of those since I became queen." They sat quietly together. Then Azira said, "Do you miss Earth?" Evan nodded. "Sometimes, the smell of rain, the sound of ocean waves. My sister's old cooking. You can visit, I know, but this is home now." She looked at him, her glowing eyes soft. "I'm glad," she said. In the weeks that followed, Evan began learning the deeper parts of Zyrene leadership. He met with noble houses, many of whom still looked at him with doubt. But he spoke with honesty and calm. He didn't try to act like a Zyrene. He remained human. As slowly they respected that. He also worked with Earth's diplomats. Some wanted to use his marriage as a political tool. They wanted trade deals, weapons, access, and influence. Evan stood firm. "This is not a business contract," he told them. "This is my family." Queen Azira supported him completely. They agreed to peaceful trade, shared knowledge, and open talks. But Earth would not control Velthara through him. He belonged to both worlds but served only truth. One day, while walking through the royal nursery, Evan found Nisha floating near a shelf of glowing books. She was trying to touch one with her tiny fingers. "Hey, little star," he said gently. She turned and laughed, floating into his arms. He sat with her in a chair made of vines and silk. "You've grown," he whispered. She babbled in her own baby language, but he felt her thoughts in his mind-warm feelings. "Trust, love. Your mother thinks she'll be stronger than both of us, he said. She's probably right. The baby blinked and smiled. Evan held her close and began to hum an old earth lullaby. She fell asleep in minutes, and as she slept, her cradle floated softly, a gentle glow wrapping around her like a dream. That night, Azira joined him in their private chamber. She grows quickly, she said, watching her daughter sleep. She'll be walking soon. She already floats faster than most guards can follow. Azira smiled. They sat together, shoulder to shoulder. Do you ever wonder, Azira asked, why fate brought you to me? Evan thought for a moment. No, he said, because I believe in choice. You gave me one. I gave one back. She nodded. Double quotes. Do you regret anything? Only that I didn't hum sooner. She laughed. A real warm laugh. You humans are strange, she said. You aliens are weirder, he replied. They smiled at each other, and in the quiet night, they were just two people. Not a queen and a soldier. Not symbols of two planets, just partners. Just parents. The next morning, a message came from a distant world. A small planet was under attack by pirates. Their people begged for help. We're too far from Zyrene core worlds, and Earth had little presence there. Evan brought the message to Azira. We could ignore it, he said. It's not our duty. But what do you feel? She asked. He looked at her and said, I feel like helping. She nodded. Then we will. Together, they led a small mission. A mix of human and Zyrene ships arrived at the planet in days. The pirates fled at the sight of them. The people cheered as the queen and her human consort landed on their soil. The young ones gathered around Evan, touching his earth skin and asking questions. Are you a real king? Can you fly? Is it true you've calmed the storm princess? Evan just smiled. I'm just her dad. The children laughed. That night as they flew back home, Azira looked out the ship's window. Peace is a song, she said quietly. What kind of song? Evan asked. One that needs more than one voice. He took her hand. Then let's keep singing. Back on Valthora, Princess Nisha took her first steps. She moved across the floor on her own, giggling as Evan and Azira watched with wide eyes. She's ready, Azira whispered. For what? For the stars. Evan smiled. She's your daughter. Of course she is. Azira looked at him. No, Evan, she's our daughter. And together, they watched as the little heir of two worlds floated forward, glowing with joy guided by love. Protected by courage, and raised by a human father who once just wanted to stop a baby from crying.